Just to make some conclusions and announcements. So I will take 3 steps. First, some conclusions, then short statements about the possibilities to publish the presentations, and finally some thanks. So I will share my a few slides. I have few ones. Yeah. Okay, you see it? It's okay for you? Yeah, you are out there, so it doesn't. Okay, I suppose it's okay.
Yes, Jean-Luc,
okay.
It's okay.
Thank you. So we had a very nice week, very intense. I cannot understand why really we had to skip the lunch time, but because of course we had too many presentations, so it was rather dense. And I would like to try to draw some conclusions, giving some personal ideas about what I listened to during the week. So I think that we could say that the spider of historical ecology is spreading its web in space and in science. But okay, it's not perhaps better. I would say that the tree of historical ecology is taking deeper roots in time and in science, in the scientific landscape, with this conference and others. So I would like to compare this edition to the previous ones, the previous historical ecology conference in which I have participated since the first one I participated in, and perhaps it was one of the first one in Leuven in Belgium in 2003. And I note a long time certain developments from one conference to the other. The number of participants is relatively constant, but their diversity is increasing. It's my main remark about who we are. Concerning the new developments, I would just like to stress some points. First, I remarked that along the years, the link with archaeologists and archaeology, the interest of archaeology in ecology is increasing. And we have more and more archaeological presentation or archaeological work or together with archaeologists. And this made it possible to advance our research knowledge in historical ecology to more ancient times. I would say that archaeology is definitely and more a companion of historical ecology. And one testimony for this is that a new technique has made a remarkable entry into our studies in connection with archaeologists. I am talking about the LiDAR, of course, which is a real revolution and makes it possible to extend our research much further back in time. The second point is that we have databases which are maturing, and now they can answer the question of the traditional question of historical ecology on an increasingly large spatial scale, such as we have seen with forest inventories in Quebec, or the database of forestry plot for resampled studies in vegetation. And on the other side of the scale on the other side of the range of scales, we have the opposite. The methods are refining, and now they allow a real fantastic temporal and spatial resolution up or down to a few hundred of meters for mapping vegetation in the past, or down to a few decades, even years, for temporal resolution. And I think this is a real progress on both sides of the scale of our studies. The third point is that we are still expanding the range of environments which are studied, the range of environments or habitats. And I would take as an example the urban habitats. The entry of urbanized environments is really noteworthy in this conference. And in the urban world where we are living today, it's really interesting to note that the trajectories of these urban environments, the surrounding of anciently natural pieces of land by more denser and denser urban areas, it's very important for understanding their role. I mean, understanding the history of urban areas is more and more taken into account in our studies, and it's rather new. Fourth point is that the objective of our studies are also evolving. And I note during this conference that the conservation of natural environments is becoming increasingly important in our work. The characterization of former states, the definition of reference states for conservation, the verification of the temporal continuity. Do we have a long history of forest or grassland? They have become reasons why we are asked by conservationists to work with them. They want to know all these forest continuities and histories. And this is because the society is now much more motivated by the free evolution of the environment, motivated by the setting up integral reserves to have places where humans do not interact at all with nature. So historical ecology, of course, help to choose and validate the choice of these areas to be conserved or not. But I think it's also our responsibility to show that the total halt of human activities is not always the best way to conserve nature. The last point is that non-historical drivers are taking a larger and larger importance in our work. Obviously, climate change, direct human actions to manage environment, atmospheric deposition are increasingly important in our studies because they interact, of course, with historical effects. Okay, that was for what I thought as a rather some trends we have in historical ecology. On the opposite, or not the opposite, but some points which, in my opinion, are still to grow. First is that more and more ecosystems now are considered as social ecological systems. Even the word which is now used instead of ecosystem, more and more we use the term social ecological systems. And we have to, of course, our work, former work in historical ecology has contributed a lot to this because we showed that history was important for understanding the functioning of ecosystems. But on the other hand, I think that we can still make great progress in taking into account people. And I think, for example, as I think to ethnologists or sociologists, who are very rarely associated with our studies. There were some in this conference, but very few. Of course, animals and microbes are much less studied than plants, and I think it's still a problem. And even when they are studied, for example, such as microbial activities of soils, it's more as an indicator of function, of an indicator of some other dynamics, an impact, or but it's not studied for itself. I mean, we are not in the way up to now to reconstruct, for example, to reconstruct past microbial communities or invertebrates. Yeah, for invertebrates, it's better. But I think we should go further in the reconstruction of past animal dynamics. And it's even true for the ungulates. We still have to progress. For example, palynologists, they believe that they have invalidated the Verra's hypothesis of a temperate savanna forest, which was in favor at the beginning of the years 2000. But ecologists are left dissatisfied because we know that oak dominance in deciduous temperate forest cannot be explained without the presence of dense herds of animals. So there are still some problems to solve. What else? Yeah, above ground is still largely predominant upon below ground studies, and I think it's still a problem. Molecular tools are very little used, very, very little. There was no presentation, I think, using molecular tools apart from the keynote at the end. And and it's not only a question of using DNA in sedimentary analysis, but also a lot of things are to be done with population genetics, I think, in order to elucidate the movements, the past movements of plant or animal populations. Yeah. We need also better, I mean, quantitative characterization of former practices. We still are, yes, satisfied only getting qualitative land occupation information, and it's not enough. Yeah, next is we need also to develop mechanistic and modeling approaches to better understand how ecological conditions and landscape changes are controlled by historical land use and historical activities. How do these historical activities impact biodiversity patterns in the present day? And our approach is not so based on models, and it's a problem for the future because we will be asked to model and to make scenarios for the future. And of course, it's only possible if we have good mechanistic approach. Last but not least, we are still in the middle of the bridge because a lot of us, and I belong to them, when you are a plant scientist, you use vegetation analysis, and when you are a geographer, you prefer maps, and when you are an historian, you prefer written sources, and so on. While we have seen some nice examples how historical ecology might benefit a lot from very broad transdisciplinary approaches. That's it for my just few thoughts about the conference. Now, I would like to move to something more practical. It's about the publication of the presentations. We have thought in the organizing committee about different solutions, different possibilities. So either we could publish presentations in a journal, in a scientific journal, or we could also edit a book of proceedings. So we already contact some journals which all of them agreed on this possibility. So Annals of Forest Science, Land, and Landscape Ecology, which are displayed on this slide with the impact factors, you can see. the solutions are very different because for annals of forest science and land, these are now open access journals, totally open access journals, which means that you have to pay for publishing in these journals. So they will offer the equivalent of a few articles free, but we will have to pay. So this would be the problem. Landscape ecology is either we can pay or we can go through a traditional publication, which means that it's not in open access in this case if you don't pay for your article. It's a really it's a real pity that we have to go through such processes, but that's it. So the last one is to edit a book. I will not go further in details in these different solutions. So what we have decided is that we will discuss with the scientific committee of the conference. We will discuss these different possibilities, and we will send you a mail, and we will ask you please to react if you want and to give your opinion about the different possibilities. And if you have already some ideas, of course, you can send a mail to the address which is on the top right of this slide in order to give your thoughts about publication of the presentation. Yeah, next is some thanks. So first, I would like to thank the sponsors, the financial sponsors of this conference. So one is a private foundation, UEM in Metz. The next one is a LabEx Arbre. It means it's a consortium of public research institutes and laboratories. Deep Surf is a program of the University of Lorraine, and LabEx Dream is also another consortium of research. They all founded the conference, and we thank them for this. Thanks also to the organizers. The scientific committee, and I cannot name them all here, it would be too long, so you have the list here. And thanks to the organizing committee in the local committee, which was composed of Sandrine Chauchard, Clémence Chaudron, myself, Thomas Feiss, Vincent Robin, Claudia Oliveira, Catherine Pierson, Maxime Burst, and a special thank to Corinne Martin, because she was very helpful, especially for the design of the website and to help in the management of the internet during this conference. And you know how important was internet, of course, for us during this conference. So thank you all. Of course, thank you to all of you who attended the conference. My last slide, also, an announcement, a very important announcement is, please, it's written on the top right, read it, please send your written permission to distribute your video online. You received a sheet to fill in, giving your permission to distribute, because you are online, and okay, it's all right to refuse or to accept. Otherwise, if you don't send your permission, we'll have to remove your video from the conference website, and it would be a pity, because I think they were all very interesting. So thank you for thinking and sending this authorization. And so finally, it's not the same to talk to your laptop as to come to France and to taste Quiche Lorraine and Mirabel Plume alcohol, which are local products. So I say, see you next time, I hope, in France or elsewhere, in real life, at least. Thank you, and bye-bye.